Good morning. I'm Marc Roy. I'm a research professor with the Payson Center for International Development and the new Disaster Resilience Leadership Academy at Tulane University in New Orleans. I'm here this morning with Paddy Buratto, who is Chief of External Affairs for FEMA, and here at their headquarters building in Algiers, just on the west bank of New Orleans. Morning, Paddy.
Morning, Marc.
As you know, we've had a number of discussions through the years since we've both been part of the disaster and the following recovery after Katrina as to what needs to be done, what are the lessons learned, some of the problems and solutions faced. And with that in mind, I thought we'd deal with some of those questions this morning. Having worked in both Mississippi and Louisiana, which gives you a rather unique perspective, following Hurricane Katrina, what lessons do you think have been learned that will be important for future recovery efforts both in this area and other areas in the country?
I think there are several things. I think the most important thing that we've learned is that we need to be prepared, be it FEMA, the state, local parishes, cities, individuals. One of the things that Administrator Fugate is doing right now is putting a heavy emphasis on individual preparation, trying to make sure people throughout the country understand that they're responsible for their own safety, and that FEMA will come in after a disaster shortly before and work to help people recover. But the best way to protect themselves is to be prepared in advance and to make sure that they do what's necessary to protect themselves and their families. In terms of working with states and parishes, the lessons we've learned, I think, is that we have to have good communication throughout the process, that prior to a storm coming, during the storm taking place, as well as afterwards. And I think those things have been instrumental. One of the reasons we know that that's worked is because when Hurricanes Gustav and Ike came, we had a good relationship with the state of Louisiana and with the parishes. We were able to mitigate the damage from those storms by being prepared ahead of time, working with the governor, and working with the state and local elected officials to be able to minimize the damage that was done, particularly for safety, and that there were no deaths in either one of those storms, and I think that was due to preparation.
Well, specifically, what measures have been implemented? And I'm thinking in terms of liaison positions or other things with, say, Mississippi counties or Louisiana parishes since Katrina. We both, I think, were here and experienced some of the problems that occurred when the federal people were subject to some level of mistrust by the state people, and sometimes vice versa. So have there been some specific changes to facilitate this good communication strategy?
I think there have, and one thing that's beneficial down here on the coast is that we have a Mississippi Transitional Recovery Office as well as a Louisiana Transitional Recovery Office. And they've been there for almost since after the storm were JFOs and then turned into Transitional Recovery Offices. And now we've built those relationships with the state elected officials. When the governor changed, we made sure here in Louisiana that we went and visited with him at all levels, from intergovernmental affairs up to the director of the Louisiana Transitional Recovery Office. Mississippi, the governor has remained the same as he's been in office for the entire time. But now we have intergovernmental relations liaisons that work with the parishes, work with the city of New Orleans. They also do that in Mississippi. So there's constant communication with them on a daily basis, working through the project worksheets for the more than 300 projects that still are in the works here in the city of New Orleans, as well as through parishes and coastal parishes throughout Louisiana and in Mississippi. So I think by working with them daily as we come up to storm season here in June, that it really makes a big difference that you have those relationships built and that we work daily with them. The response will be done by our regional office here in Louisiana, which is out of Denton, Texas. However, they will supplement surge staff to help with that response should there be a storm with the people here who have the relationships and already know and work with individuals from the city level clear up through the state levels.
And for some folks who are not aware of the Transitional Recovery Office, the basic concept is to employ local people with a more long-term commitment and interest in the recovery themselves. Is that correct?
That's correct. And one of the things that will be one of the most beneficial things to come out of Hurricane Katrina, Rita, Gustav, Ike, is the fact that we are now training and have a great deal of experienced cadre, individuals and employees for FEMA that we've never seen before. At one time there were, it probably have been several thousand people going through the Louisiana Transitional Recovery Office. These people probably, as we like to say here, have a PhD in recovery, because the issues that faced New Orleans, a whole city displaced, the infrastructure completely destroyed, all of those things were much more difficult and much more, challenging to be able to recover from, and that recovery will last years. But one of the hopes is for FEMA that the people who they've trained here will eventually maybe go on to other places in the country, to other disasters, and help with their response and recovery, and they'll have more experience than probably many of the people that have been working for FEMA for years, because the challenges were so difficult and so extensive here in Louisiana and throughout the coast.
And with massive disasters looming at some point in the future, a developed cadre of workers and more experienced workers will definitely be welcome. I know when we had this initially, when you and I started, anybody who could get to the office almost got a job, because we were so short of experienced personnel, and we had to have people on duty in a hurry. So as I understand your comments this morning, you've got increased liaisons with local, state, community officials. There's the continued use of the Transitional Recovery Office framework to promote internal or local employment opportunities, as well as enhanced training. So all this should help provide better communication.
And most of our people, as you know, when you work a disaster in other parts of the country, usually they're 60 days, 90 days, potentially for larger disasters, maybe 6 to 8 months. Here we have many people, as you know, who have been involved, like I have, since right after Hurricane Katrina. So lots of people are coming up on 5 years of direct recovery and response experience, and that kind of experience is not the norm throughout the country, because most disasters, the work to recover does not take that long. So those people really are getting a PhD, so to speak, in emergency management training and learning the steps along the way. And then not only recovery, but as Hurricane Gustav and Ike came, you also get experience in the response as helping with surge recovery or response staff. And so you get experience in all areas, which I think is really monumentally helpful down the road to the agency, as well as to the survivors and the communities that will be affected by future storms.
Certainly, tremendous value all the way around, stemming from a very disastrous beginning.